Today's on Business Talk, we're going to take a closer look at startups. Startups are often told to aim for unicorn status, but the focus on rapid growth, hypergrowth, and massive valuations can come at a cost. Zebras, on the other hand, prioritizes stability and community impact. So why the zebra approach may be the better choice or the more relevant one? To know the answer, joining me, angel impact investor and managing partner of Instellar Investment, Stephanie Hermawan. Hi Stephanie, thank you so much for coming to our studio. Tell us why we need to talk about the zebras.
Why? Okay, I've been invited to talk about this is because I feel it is very important right now because especially in Asia, unicorn mindset has been the primary mindset of how startup should be. So, and as you can see, a lot of things happening the past 10 years here, and I feel there should be another way that is forgotten.
Yes, we forgot about zebra. So not every startup needs to be a unicorn.
Correct.
Yeah, so what is actually zebras and why it is relevant for us to talk about zebras approach or zebras concept for unicorns, or for startups, I mean?
I feel it's very important because right now, especially in Asia, we are so brainwashed with all this. The only way you can be a good startup, the measure of success is to become a unicorn.
Yes.
Even the government is pushing it, the media is pushing it, everybody is talking about it the past 10 years. But actually, the first time I heard about the term zebra is actually 7 years ago when I start going to SoCap in Silicon Valley in San Francisco. There's Social Capital Conference. So if in America, in Silicon Valley especially, the term unicorn has been there the unicorns has been quite big already, quite long, been the past 20 years. In Asia, probably 10 years, right? So they're already fed up with the unicorn game. I mean, they know how toxic it is there. But Asia, 7 years ago, we're still in the hype of this unicorn. So for me, it was very hard to talk about that zebra concept here 7 years ago because everybody wants to be unicorn. But yet, they didn't see what is the implication and the destruction of what it is in the startup ecosystem. So, unicorn is focusing on hypergrowth, right? So it's growth at all costs, basically. And then there's so many damages that they do. So Zebra is an alternative approach how you can approach things, how to become a startup. So they really care about the community and they care about the environment impact. So it has to be impact focused also. So that is what is expected right now, right? SDG and everything.
Yes.
So they're not growth at all costs, they're not hyper growth, but they are into sustainable growth. And they have to be profitable too. It has to be cash flow and EBITDA positive.
Okay, so according to data from the Coordinating Ministry for Economic Affairs globally, Indonesia is ranked 6th as the country with the largest number of startups with 2,400 startups by 2022. However, many startups we have seen die before they grow. What do you think happened and why do these founders need to consider the zebras approach?
Well, if you ask VCs, right,
Yes.
the venture capitalists, what is the number one challenge of startup? They would say trouble scaling, right? They cannot scale fast because they expect hyper growth, right? And actually, 99% startup in the world are actually, they have problem with premature scaling. So it's not just scaling, but it's premature scaling because they're forced to grow at a high speed.
Before the time has come.
Correct. So it's premature scaling because they're expected hypergrowth, right?
Yes.
So if you Google, for example, where's the first thing that you find how to become a startup? I mean, people will go to Google, right? If you Google how to become a startup, they would say, okay, there is already a cookie cutter how to become a startup. Ideation, prototyping, and then you ask for pre-series funding, and then seed funding, and then pre-series A, B, C, D until IPO. Basically, there is already a journey, and then along the journey, they expect you to grow. Okay, this is what Google said, right? 30% per week. Let me ask you, how many companies actually grow 30% a week? No, nobody, right?
Yes.
So the unicorns models, they are expecting super hyper growth, right? At all costs. But you can only achieve that if you fulfill these three criteria, I feel, right? Hyper growth is number one.
Yes.
Number two, you have to be high tech, you have to be asset light, right? High tech and asset light. But if you think about it, in Asia, especially Southeast Asia, how many startups are actually high tech and asset light?
Not
that many, right?
that many, that's
A
right.
lot of our startups here are tech enabled. A lot of the high tech is developed in Silicon Valley.
Or in India.
Or India. Correct. So we are probably mostly just tech enabled.
Yes.
So for example, like I'll give you an example of, for example, like agriculture company or agriculture startup. So maybe their measurement is their mission is to make the farmers welfare, and then suddenly they would get an investment from a VC, and they're expected for hypergrowth, right? And
Yes.
then the VC will like, why don't you make an app for your farmers, right? And I would ask them, does your farmer actually use the app,
Not
or is it just the
this-
downloads
Yeah.
that they're looking for, right?
Yes.
Does your farmer become more successful by using your app? Or are you just chasing for downloads? Because VCs looking for hypergrowth, but yet the growth they're looking at, the valuation that they're looking at is only, it's not business fundamental. It's basically just app download, right? How many
Yes.
users?
Just that metric, not how
It's not how
Much
the user
impact.
success, but
Yes.
user downloads,
Yes.
probably, right? It's two totally different key metrics.
yes.
Zebra would see, how does this technology help my farmers? Because that's their mission, that's their impact. It's a problem that they want to solve. But if you're looking for unicorn journey and then you have a VC that probably asking for hyper growth,
Yes.
they're just measuring the downloads. How many farmers have downloaded? Doesn't mean they're actually helping the farmers, right?
Yes, that's right.
That's the problem.
So you mentioned earlier before the show about the data that you have about the growth of the VC investment, the
Yeah.
return.
So I got this data that I got, the past 20 years,
Yes.
and then I got a data the past 10 years of a VC return, the ROI of VC, right? So VC needs to return the money to their investors too, their LPs,
Yes.
or limited partners. So the past 20 years, based on the data that I got, if you think about 20 years, meaning those are the VCs of Silicon Valley, the West, right? Because it's born there. And then plus Asia. Asia was kind of new. So the past 20 years, the return is 2.9x. The lifetime of a fund is actually 10 years, right?
Yes.
Not bad. The past 20 years, not bad. But what they promised for unicorn return, 100x or 1,000x.
Yes.
So actually, it's only 2.9x.
I just put it in a time deposit.
Correct. Because they're looking for something that is not actually there, right?
Yes.
I mean, yes, maybe there are unicorns, but in this part of the world, there are not that many. And then there's another data that I got just 1 month ago. This may be not published publicly. So I got this data from a friend that is a VC. That is the LP is investors of other VC funds around the world, meaning this particular LP invests in US fund, Asian fund, China fund, so many different funds, and European fund too. So there's this data set that the past 10 years, the return ROI of VC is only worldwide average
Yes.
is 0.8x. So meaning the vintage of 10 years ago, meaning this is predominantly where VC start entering Asia, right?
Yes.
The VC entering Asia is the past 10 years only. 0.8x worldwide. India is number one,
Yes.
right? They're only 1.3x. Worldwide is 0.8x.
Not that fantastic.
Do you want to know what is Southeast Asia return?
How much?
0.4x.
Oh my
This
God.
is the problem if you're just chasing the unicorn, right? So why not you look for companies that are actually real business.
Real business.
Zebra care about, okay, if I compare unicorn and zebra, right?
Yes.
Unicorn is hyper growth. The only way you can achieve that is asset light and high tech. But if you're zebra, you are sustainable growth, long-term growth. It may be not 100x or 1000x, but give you
Reasonable
return.
growth.
Reasonable, sustainable.
Yes.
And then you are impact focused, meaning you're focusing on the mission. What is the problem that you want to solve in the society or in the planet? And the third, you have to be cash flow or EBITDA positive, like real business fundamentals.
Yes. Double bottom line, they say.
Correct.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, for joining us today. Due to time constraint, I have to wrap up our discussion here. And that was our conversation on the zebra versus unicorn for today's Business Talk. You can stay connected with us on Instagram, Ags, at YouTube. Our handle is at CToday News. We're available online at ctodaynews.com.